What do you think that we as physicians can do better in terms of this type of conversation?
I think, listening to you talk about your approach brought up a couple of things. Time, which I know is really hard to make time, but we all know that you can, right? But really taking time with patients, that is what I have the luxury to do as a social worker because my job is to talk. And so oftentimes a physician will say, deliver something and then leave the room. And then I'm left for 2 hours talking to the family about all of the feelings that came up from that, right? I'm not expecting doctors to spend 2 hours, but I think taking a little time to really explain what's going on.
Yeah.
But I think the training is what's needed because I do a lot of health fairs and I'm out in the community and I'm trying to do all this education. And medical students will come up to me and say, I want to learn more about this. I think if we can bring death and dying into medical schools, into social work schools, social work, I took a death and dying class. All of these disciplines that are working with people as they're dying should actually have some training when they get their degree in that.
There are different types of physicians that specialize in different things. So not only are there physicians that specialize in certain organs that are damaged, but there are physicians that specialize in certain processes that take place. And the physicians that specialize in dying patients and dealing with their comfort and the social issues that encompass when a patient is moving from this stage of life to the next stage of life, these physicians are called hospice physicians. These clinicians are very different than clinicians that are in the hospital because the whole goal of the hospice physician is to make sure that the patient is comfortable and the patient doesn't get readmitted to the hospital, stays out of the hospital, and that family members are appropriately supported. Mm-hmm. That is how I look at it, right? Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you are a significant part of that team. When you think about the benefits of that open dialogue of death, like what are those benefits?
I could write a dissertation on it, but
give me 3.
First, you can avoid medical procedures that you don't want if you talk about it ahead of time, right? You can have closer to the death that you want if you talk about it and plan for that. There's less chaos and conflict with your family members who don't know what you would want because you've never had a conversation or designated anyone to make decisions for you. There's a lot of second guessing in grief. So the grievers left behind are constantly wondering if they made the right choices or did right by their person. And there's no do-over. And so that just lingers. Also, if you don't do any paperwork planning, your grievers might even be mad at you because it's a mess that you've left. So there's a lot of benefits. And lastly, people get closer together when they talk about these topics. They're meaty. This isn't a football conversation. This isn't what just happened today. These are meaningful, important conversations, and we don't have a chance to do it very often. And so I find that when I'm connecting, even with a stranger, over these topics, there's a real connection. You feel close to that person, and so I think it builds relationships, strengthens relationships as well.
It is literally the opportunity of a lifetime because you have the chance to talk to somebody about their life while you're talking about the end of their life, and they get to talk about whatever they want. And I often tell people and their family members, when I'm in the room and I'm talking about that, I'm like, listen, I don't want you worried about this monitor. Mm-hmm. I don't want you worried about, the patient. I want you to talk about their life. I want you to talk about the things that left you with a smile. I want you to talk about the things that you were so excited to do with this person. I want you to talk about all the things that, we define as life. Mm-hmm. I don't want you to sit here and talk about where they're going because we don't know. life is different stages. And when you move from this stage of life to the next stage of life, we call it death, but it's just the next stage of life. We just can't go there and come back. It's very important to have this type of conversation with patients and their family members so that they understand